Welcome back to another Humm Baby Baseball Countdown, and we've got a special and maybe controversial one today, a snubs video but only involving MLB players with some type of PED connection. These are players that have been left out of the Hall of Fame primarily or in some cases exclusively because of that connection. Some fans believe that any player who took steroids or PEDs of any kind should never be allowed in the Hall of Fame under any circumstances. But others say MLB and former Commissioner Bud Selig did not try to stop it, they did not enforce any rules against it, and a huge percentage of the league was doing it. So let's just consider it a particular era of the game, the steroid era, and vote the great players in who deserve it just like we would in any other era. But then how do we treat more recent players who actually failed steroid tests and were suspended for it? Again, opinions vary. Do they deserve harsher treatment since they actually failed a steroid test, or does it matter? The debates rage on. For me, it's a case-by-case basis. But if a player appears on a Hall of Fame ballot, then that player is officially eligible and broke no rules so serious as to merit a ban. So just as I would for any other player, I would consider the good, the bad, and there are many players in the Hall of Fame who have broken rules before, and many with serious character flaws. Sure, taking steroids is a mark against a player, but nowhere in the Hall of Fame guidelines does it say a player has to be a perfect human being. Players do whatever they can to gain an edge, and it's up to those who run the game to make sure that there are enforced rules in place to stop it. If not, players will bend or break the rules. Gaylord Perry was famous for throwing the illegal spitball for much of his career, and he was elected to the Hall of Fame. Then there's Hall of Famer Rogers Hornsby, who wrote an article titled, "You've Got to Cheat to Win," in which he claimed he cheated every chance he could and saw cheating in almost every game. Of course, I'm not condoning cheating, but the point is players have done it throughout baseball history and will continue to do so until measures are taken to stop it. And to take it a step further, there are without a doubt multiple players already in who have done steroids. One might be David Ortiz, who reportedly tested positive for PEDs in 2003 when a series of tests was given to MLB players and was supposed to be secret, but it eventually leaked. Ortiz was given a pass by the voters, but they were not so gracious with some other players. For these reasons, more and more fans are leaning towards the opinion that at least some of these great players should be in the Hall of Fame, and I completely agree. So let's get started with today's top 10 MLB players with PED connections that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'll explain briefly why they're suspected of steroids, what they accomplished in their career, and why I think they should be heavily considered for Cooperstown. But first, I have a big honorable mention, someone who might not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but how could I do a steroid-related video without mentioning Jose Canseco? We have to start with the godfather of the steroid era, Jose Canseco. Growing up in the late 80s, there was no bigger name in baseball, and my friends and I used to buy packs of baseball cards just hoping to pull a Canseco. He made baseball history, becoming the first player to crush 40 homers and steal 40 bases in one season, and he also won a Rookie of the Year, MVP award, and 4 Silver Sluggers. Canseco crushed 462 homers in his career, just 38 short of the magic 500. Unfortunately, he got just 1.1% of the vote on the Hall of Fame ballot and later wrote a book that completely exposed MLB for the steroid era. The book didn't make Canseco many friends and all but guaranteed that he would never sniff Cooperstown. But should he? Well, he definitely had the stardom. Canseco was an absolute superstar for years and made 6 total All-Star teams. Statistically, though, despite the home run total, he is borderline with a .266 average, 1,877 hits, and no Gold Gloves.
Well, Jose's not in the Hall of Fame, and I said, well, I don't deserve to be. He says he doesn't deserve to be. So
exactly. I don't have the stats. I don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
On top of the steroids and the book, he's also had quite a bit of controversies and arrests throughout his career, which hurt regarding the character clause. Ultimately, although I wouldn't mind seeing a Jose Canseco plaque in the Hall of Fame, the reality is there's no way Canseco should get in while some of the other names I'm about to get to are still on the outside. So although I'm a Canseco fan and I love listening to his videos, like the one where he challenges Aaron Judge to a home run contest.
Do you think you can actually hit a baseball further than I can hit a softball? Don't forget who I am and who I was. $250,000. Let me know.
I would have to say, in all seriousness, for the time being, Jose Canseco is not a Hall of Famer, but if the name of the museum was accurate, he would definitely belong because there was nobody more famous during his prime than Jose Canseco. Now let's get to my top 10 snubs. Number 10, Manny Ramirez. Starting off, we have Manny Ramirez, who actually failed not one, not two, but 3 steroid tests. The first was the same 2003 test that David Ortiz failed, but Ramirez went on to fail 2 more, one that resulted in a 50-game suspension and another that led to his retirement. For this reason, I understand voters leaving his name off the ballot, especially since they are only allowed 10 names. But Manny was an unbelievable hitter even as a youngster, likely before he ever touched steroids. He hit .308 with 31 homers and 107 RBIs his first full season at just 23 years old in 1995. By the end of his career, statistically, Manny was easily a first ballot Hall of Famer. He is part of the 500 home run club with 555 career bombs and retired with an extremely impressive .312 batting average. He was a 12-time All-Star, 9-time Silver Slugger, World Series MVP, and even won a batting title in 2002 with a .349 average. He finished in the top 10 for MVP 9 times, although he never won the award. But he was known as being very quirky during his career, and his odd behavior led to the phrase, Manny being Manny. But that quirkiness turned into misbehavior, and he was involved in many controversies, in addition to the 3 failed steroid tests. So if I had a ballot, he would be one of my last choices and would probably get left off because of the 10-name limit. But I do believe Manny would have had a Hall of Fame career had he never touched steroids. And so if some of the better players on this list ever start getting in, I would not mind seeing Manny get in as well. Number 9, Jason Giambi. Giambi is one of the few PED connected players who played throughout the entire steroid era of the 90s and 2000s and continued his career into the 2010s. He ended up playing for 20 years, retiring after 2014. Giambi hit 440 career bombs, but also excelled at getting on base, leading the league in walks 4 times and retiring with a .399 on-base percentage and over 2,000 hits. He also has an MVP on his shelf, winning the award in 2000 with 43 homers and 137 RBIs, which was before he started juicing, according to his testimony. Unlike most of the big names of the steroid era, Giambi apologized for using steroids during his career and urged other players to do the same. He was named in the Balco investigation and admitted to using steroids during the off seasons from 2001 to 2003. I was wrong for using that stuff, he told USA Today in 2007. What we should have done a long time ago was stand up, players, ownership, everybody, and say, we made a mistake. Giambi continued to put up big numbers even after he stopped juicing, smashing 32 home runs for the Yankees in 2008. He always had a great eye to go along with a pure and powerful bat, but there's no telling what his stats would have looked like without steroids. But he owned up to his mistake and apologized, and had a great 20-year career. He also seemed to be a great teammate who was well liked. Otherwise, there's no way he would have stayed in MLB through his age 43 season. All told, he wouldn't be one of the first names I put on a ballot, but if I had room, I would definitely be willing to check Jason Giambi's name for the Hall of Fame. Number 8, Andy Pettitte. Up next is Andy Pettitte, whose connection to PEDs has definitely helped keep him out of the Hall of Fame. He was straightforward about his use of HGH to help heal from an injury during 2002. And I personally believe that Pettitte was not someone who was juicing throughout his career. He seemed honest and apologetic, and when he did it, HGH wasn't even banned in MLB. As for his career, Pettitte had 256 wins, but it was his postseason performance that puts him over the top. He is the game's all-time leader in playoff wins and is 4th in strikeouts behind Clayton Kershaw. Of course, a huge part of that is that he played for the Yankees, who made the playoffs a lot, but Pettitte still had to pitch well on the biggest stage, and he consistently did that. As for the bulk of his career, he won over 20 games twice, struck out 2,448 batters, and ended his career with more wins than any pitcher in a Yankee uniform other than Whitey Ford and Red Ruffing, both Hall of Famers. Pettitte's career WAR of 60.2 is higher than many big-name Hall of Famers, including Whitey Ford and Yogi Berra. So Andy Pettitte is another name I would put on my ballot if I had room, and in fact, he was on my unofficial 2021 ballot, but he got just 13.7% of the vote that year. He did make some progress, though, getting 27.9% on this year's ballot. Number 7, Rafael Palmeiro. Palmeiro retired with 569 home runs and 3,020 hits, normally more than enough for easy induction into the Hall of Fame. He was a fantastic hitter from his early years with the Cubs when he made the All-Star team in 1988 and hit .307 with 41 doubles. But his power didn't really show up until he was with the Texas Rangers in the early 90s, the notorious steroid-driven team that had Canseco, Pudge, and Juan Gonzalez. Palmeiro smashed 37 bombs in 1993, and the power continued with Baltimore when he hit 39 in 95 and then 39 again in 96. Back with Texas, he had perhaps his best year in 1999 with 47 homers and a .324 average. He was also a smooth fielder who won 3 Gold Gloves. Palmeiro was named in Canseco's book as a steroid user, and he appeared at a congressional hearing vehemently denying it. He wagged his finger and said he never used steroids, period. A few months later, he was suspended for failing a steroid test, but continued to claim that he never intentionally put a banned substance into his body. It's hard to believe that based on his failed test, Canseco's book, and the sudden power surge when he joined the early 90s Texas Rangers. It's impossible to know what type of career he could have had without the roids, but he was a first-round pick, top prospect, and natural hitter from his early days, who had a chance to have a Hall of Fame career and develop big power without extra help. As it stands, he is one of just 7 members of the 3,000-hit, 500 home run club, which includes Willie Mays and Hank Aaron. So although I wouldn't put his name above the next 6, Palmeiro is someone I would definitely vote for. Number 6, Alex Rodriguez. The only reason A-Rod is this low on the list is because he, like Manny, did steroids while testing was in full force, and more than once failed a test. If he had borderline stats like Jason Giambi or Jose Canseco, I don't think I could support him for the Hall of Fame. But Alex Rodriguez was a generational talent whose numbers rank among the best in the history of the game. He was elite from his early years with the Seattle Mariners before he ever touched steroids, crushing 36 home runs and 54 doubles in 1996 with a league-leading .358 batting average, finishing second for the MVP at just 21. He continued to put up massive numbers in Seattle before signing a record-breaking deal with the Texas Rangers. It was then that he first started using steroids, and his stats blew up even bigger. He led the league in home runs each of the 3 seasons in Texas and took home the MVP in 2003. But A-Rod was also an elite defender, winning back-to-back Gold Gloves before moving on to the New York Yankees, where he won 2 more MVPs. It was in 2009 that his steroid use came to light, and he admitted to using them during his time with the Rangers. But then, in 2014, he was nailed again for steroids as part of the biogenesis scandal and was subsequently suspended for a year.
Are you stupid or something?
He returned to crush 33 homers at 40 years of age in 2015, proving his incredible talent. A-Rod ended his career with 696 home runs and a .295 average, but he would have probably hit over 500 without steroids, although we'll never know the exact number. Despite the steroid failures, Rodriguez was still one of the greatest players of all time, and although I would check the other names ahead of him on this list first, if I had room on my ballot, I would still vote for Alex Rodriguez, who got 37.1% of the vote on this year's ballot. Number 5, Gary Sheffield. Up next is Gary Sheffield, who got close but fell short of the Hall of Fame with 63.9% of the vote in 2024, falling off the ballot. As a ball player, there is little doubt he is definitely Hall of Fame worthy. Sheffield smashed 509 home runs, which historically would have been enough alone to get a player in the Hall of Fame. But he also had 2,689 hits, a .292 average, 9 All-Star selections, 5 Silver Sluggers, and a batting title in 1992 when he hit .330. He finished in the top 3 for the MVP 3 times, finishing second in 2004. He might not be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but there's no doubt he has the numbers to get in. But he had a PED connection stemming from workouts with Barry Bonds in the early 2000s during a time MLB was not testing for steroids. He admitted to using some of the cream Bonds was using to help his muscles recover, and he says he only found out later that it was a type of steroid. Sheffield also reportedly bought a small amount of vitamins from Balco. He has one of the more flimsy connections to PEDs, and it's probably probable that he was only taking them during the 2002 season with the Atlanta Braves. The vast majority of his career stats were probably clean, and Sheffield was a massive talent from his early years in the 80s with Milwaukee, and he went on to become one of the best players in the early history of the Marlins. He is a perfect example of how voters will pick and choose who they will forgive regarding steroids and who they won't. He was surrounded by steroid users and made a couple of mistakes during a short period of his career, but it shouldn't keep him out of the Hall of Fame, especially if other players like Ivan Rodriguez, Jeff Bagwell, Mike Piazza, and David Ortiz are all in, all of whom have had some type of connection to PEDs. Sheffield is definitely a major Hall of Fame snub, in my opinion. Number 4, Sammy Sosa. Next on the list is a tough one, as Sammy Sosa clearly put together a Hall of Fame career statistically, but it's not 100% whether or not he would have been a Hall of Famer without the juice. He was more or less an average player with the Rangers and White Sox before his first big season in 1993 with the Cubs when he hit 33 home runs. He went on to have a very impressive 5-year period of averaging 34 homers and 100 RBIs from 1993 to 1997. This type of production alone could have led to a Hall of Fame career for Sosa, but then his home run numbers exploded in 1998 when he and Mark McGwire revived the sport and brought in millions of new fans as they chased the single-season home run record of 61 held by Roger Maris. Sosa ended up with 66 bombs and the MVP award. McGwire ended up with the record, hitting 70. But it wasn't a one and done for Sosa. He continued to crush home runs at a ridiculous pace, smashing at least 60 home runs 2 more times and averaging 58 per season for 5 years. He eventually joined the exclusive 600 home run club and finished his career with 609 round trippers to go along with 2,408 hits and 1,667 RBIs. Interestingly, the only evidence against Sosa is a positive test from the leaked 2003 list, the same list that has David Ortiz on it. David Ortiz got a complete pass and was inducted on his first ballot, while Sosa was snubbed on every ballot until he fell off. If the Hall of Fame is going to give the benefit of the doubt to these players like Ortiz, Piazza, Pudge, and so on, then that should be the standard for everyone, and Sammy Sosa had 600 career homers, 7 All-Star selections, and an MVP, so he should be in as well. Number 3, Mark McGwire. Moving into the top 3, we have another generational talent in Mark McGwire, a man born to hit home runs. He drilled 32 bombs for the USC Trojans in 1984 and was drafted 10th overall by the A's. McGwire had one of the most impressive rookie years ever seen in 1987, smashing 49 bombs with a league-leading .618 slugging percentage, winning the Rookie of the Year. McGwire became an instant superstar and made 6 straight All-Star teams until injuries started to hamper his career around 1993. He played in just 74 games over a 2-year period, but then he got healthy and his bat exploded as McGwire smashed 52 bombs in 96, then 58 in 97. Then, of course, 1998 came, and with the St. Louis Cardinals, he crushed 70 bombs, breaking the single-season home run record, and followed it up with 65 in 1999. McGwire hit 583 career bombs, made 12 total All-Star teams, won 3 Silver Sluggers, and even a Gold Glove. He was named in Canseco's book and appeared in that congressional hearing where he famously declined to answer any questions, saying he did not want to talk about the past.
As part of your training routine, in addition to Andro, which was legal at the time that you used it, what other supplements did you use?
I'm not here to talk about the past.
However, he eventually did admit to steroid use during his career, saying that he didn't need it for performance, rather to recover quickly from injuries and stay on the field. There's no doubt McGwire had all the talent in the world as far as hitting home runs, and he would have been a great power hitter without the steroids, although just how many homers he would have hit is unknown. Nevertheless, based on his accomplishments and the fact that he played during a time when no testing was done and no measures were taken to prevent steroid use, I definitely support Mark McGwire's entry into Cooperstown, and he deserves a plaque, although not before the next 2 legends of the game. Number 2, Roger Clemens. Perhaps the greatest pitcher to ever live, Roger Clemens was identified early as a potential superstar. He was drafted in the first round by the Boston Red Sox in 1983, and just 3 years later, he won a Cy Young Award and MVP with an absolutely phenomenal and dominant season in 1986. He went 24-4 with a 2.48 ERA and 238 strikeouts. He followed it up with another Cy Young in 87 and then a third in 1991. By 1996, his last year with Boston, Clemens had already put together a Hall of Fame career, setting multiple records, including not one, but two record-breaking 20 strikeout 9-inning games. He even tied Cy Young with the most shutouts in Red Sox history, all before he ever touched steroids. But then Clemens signed with the Toronto Blue Jays, where he likely first started taking roids. He immediately won a fourth Cy Young in 97, leading the league with a 2.05 ERA, with an also league-leading 292 strikeouts and 21 wins. In 1998, he won the award again. If there was any doubt that Roger Clemens was among the greatest pitchers to ever live, that doubt was completely gone, and he just kept dominating, winning a sixth Cy Young with the Yankees, then a seventh with Houston. No pitcher has won more Cy Young awards. He retired with 354 wins, 46 shutouts, and 4,672 strikeouts. Clemens never tested positive for steroids and never admitted to steroid use, even denying it under oath. But his personal trainer, Brian McNamee, testified that he regularly injected Clemens with steroids from 1998 to 2001. Clemens was indicted and charged with perjury, but McNamee's testimony changed throughout the years. His inconsistency led to Clemens' acquittal. There was other evidence against Clemens, including a steroid distributor named Kirk Radomski, who handed over shipping receipts that proved HGH was mailed to Roger Clemens' home. But his wife Debbie said it was for her to prepare for a Sports Illustrated swimsuit shoot. The entire bizarre story is way too long to get into here, but at the end of the day, Roger Clemens was one of the greatest pitchers to ever live, even before he was alleged to have started taking steroids. His greatness as a ball player should make up for his shortcomings and mistakes, including his psychotic moments. And so Roger Clemens definitely deserves a plaque in Cooperstown. Number 1, Barry Bonds. But to no one's surprise, coming in at number 1 has to be Barry Bonds, one of, if not the best hitter to ever live. Bonds, like Clemens, could have retired at a certain point in time before he ever touched steroids and would have easily been inducted into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. He was a 6th overall selection out of Arizona State, who went on to win 2 MVPs with the Pittsburgh Pirates before signing with the Giants. In '93 with San Francisco, he hit 46 home runs with a .336 batting average and won a 3rd MVP. Bonds was also a 5-tool talent who won 8 Gold Gloves and stole at least 25 bases 11 times. He could do it all at an elite level and was considered the best player in the game throughout the 90s. By most accounts, Bonds never touched steroids until around 1999. It was in 1998 when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa were grabbing all the headlines. But Bonds led the league with an 8.1 WAR, crushing 37 home runs with 28 steals, a .303 average, and a Gold Glove. But the baseball world was paying much more attention to the McGwire-Sosa home run battle. Based on the fact that there was no testing and no enforcement at the time, it would have been incredibly impressive if Bonds just took the high road and continued to play clean while he never got the attention he deserved. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's what happened, as Bonds turned into an absolute monster entering into the 2000s. In his mid-30s, he suddenly hit a career-high 49 home runs in 2000, and then in 2001, all the attention turned to Barry Bonds as he broke McGwire's record, finishing with an unbelievable 73 home runs. He had the most dominant 5-year period ever seen, winning 4 straight MVPs, 5 straight Silver Sluggers, while leading the league in walks and OPS plus every season, all in his mid to late 30s, when most players start to slow down significantly. Bonds ended his career with 762 home runs, 2,558 walks, a 162.8 WAR, and 168 intentional walks, all MLB records. But in 2004, It was alleged that Bonds received steroids from Balco. Later, Gary Sheffield said that he was introduced to Balco and the testosterone-based cream by Barry Bonds while in training before the 2002 season. Bonds admitted to receiving the cream and clear from his trainer, Greg Anderson, but said he didn't know they were steroids. Books like The Game of Shadows were released, detailing the use of steroids and other drugs by Bonds. Investigations later revealed a Balco screening test in the year 2000 in which Bonds tested positive for steroids, but he never failed an official MLB test, which started in 2003. Based on the stats, appearance, and evidence, it's pretty tough to deny Barry Bonds was taking something during the early 2000s when he became an absolute cyborg, but there is no doubt he was one of baseball's best players to ever live long before he touched steroids. He was a 3-time MVP on his way to becoming the first MLB player to ever hit 400 home runs and steal 400 bases, a feat he would have accomplished easily without steroids. MLB determined in the rules that taking steroids does not result in the banning of a player like gambling on baseball does. So why do voters treat this as a cardinal sin that should keep every player out forever, no matter how good they were or no matter what they accomplished on the field, even if it was before they took steroids? I can understand some of the names on today's list being kept out, like Manny Ramirez or Jason Giambi, but I'll never understand how one of, if not the greatest baseball player to ever live, is still being snubbed. And he is my #1 PED connected snub of all time, and perhaps the greatest snub of all time, period. Barry Lamar Bonds. And that does it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm sure it'll be quite controversial. Let me know which of these guys you think should be in and which should not. I personally wouldn't mind all of them getting in. They were all all-time greats with Hall of Fame numbers and never did anything so horrible as to merit a lifetime ban. If they had, they wouldn't be eligible for the Hall of Fame anyway. Thanks again for checking out the video, and I look forward to talking to y'all in the next one.